This video is going to cover Lathe exercise 3. In this video, nothing really has changed since the tutorial. Once again, we have an issue here where we're creating some arcs, and how we create that feature there. We have to do it the same way we did in the tutorial. Otherwise, we're not going to end up with the correct part geometrically. Now, are there other ways of creating these? Yeah, you could definitely do this a different way from what I showed you. As long as you're getting the correct geometry in the end, that's all that really matters. So if you want to use a different way, that's fine. If you kind of stumbled onto that way while you were doing a tutorial, but for me, I choose to do it, the way that I showed you in the tutorial. Okay, so let's get started here. What I'm going to do is go to my machine, pull down Lathe default, and I'm going to go to planes, equal my DC. And if you'll remember in the last video in the tutorial for number 3, I did change some operational defaults. Actually, I changed my stock and stuff like that. So we're going to see if that updated. Hopefully it did. Sometimes those things are a little quirky and they don't always take, but I'm hoping in this situation they did. But we're going to draw our part first. So ready to get started. Okay, so let's start at 0, actually, sorry. We're going to do something a little different. Up until this point, we have drawn all the parts with our 0 in the front of the part. This time I'm going to draw it at the back of the part. It might make it a little bit easier to draw since all of our dimensions are taken off of the back. We can then machine it that way if we like, or we can translate the whole thing back. It just sometimes it makes things a little bit easier. So I'm going to do that, and I'm actually going to machine it with the 0 at the back of the part rather than at the front. Okay, so let's go ahead and enter a 1.375, 0, enter, and then we're going to go 1.375, 0.2, and then we're going to go to 1.2, well, we can't really create an endpoint for that line because we don't have one. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to create a new line there, and I'm actually going to use the angle. So I'm going to use 18 degrees, and I'm just going to create a length. Oh, sorry, that's supposed to be negative 18 degrees. Negative 18. It already created that line for me. Let me delete that. Sometimes I must accidentally hit enter there. Okay, so we're going to go negative 18 and point tab. Okay, so now I can create this line whatever length I want. I'm just going to create it a little bit longer than I need it and hit enter and check. Okay, so now I'm going to create another line. I'm going to intersect that. In this case, I'm going to make that one's at 1.2, comma, 0.8. Oops, something happened there. Accidentally, it's going to be 1.2, comma, 0.875. Enter. Okay, now I'm just going to draw a horizontal line that intersects that. And hit check. And it'll show you what I mean here. So basically what I did was I drew this line a little bit longer. I started here and drew this line and made that intersection. And then I'm going to add that radius to it, just like I did in the tutorial. Nothing really changed from the tutorial. So I'm just going to do a 0.1, make sure my clearance is on this time like it was last time, and hit enter. Okay, so there we go. So that's all cleaned up. Alright, so let's continue on. I'll start here. And this is going to go to 0.95, comma, 0.875, enter. And then we're going to, well, it looks like we're going to 0.95, comma, 1 0.15, enter. Okay, and that's going to be the beginning of our radius. So I'm going to click out of there, and I'm going to go ahead and add our radius the same way I did with a polar endpoints command. And this time we are going to be endpoint there, and this already has it kind of what we want. It was already set up for this one because that's what I used in the last in the tutorial. We just need to change the radius, 0.625, and there we go. Okay, so that gave us what we wanted. Now I'm going to start from the front of the part. So remember, my 0 is back here, so now I'm actually working at the Z 2.25 is my starting point. So I'm going to go 0, 2.25, and I'm going to go 0.625, 2.25, and 0.625, 1.875, enter. And that is the beginning of our other radius. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to again add that radius in there. Select that as my start point, or sorry, my end point. Now this is my end point, so remember my end point is actually going to be at -90 if we think about the quadrant of the circle that we want, or the quadrant of the arc that we want there. So this needs to be -90, or it could be 270. It doesn't really matter which one you use. And our start point, of course, is going to be 180. And right there is our arc. Now, there is one problem there. That arc is a little bit too big. So I'm going to delete that because we have a different sized arc. And I'm just going to come in and re-add it again. But I'm going to change this to 0.25. And that's just because I accidentally clicked that without realizing it. Okay, now we hit check, and then we're going to connect these with a tangent line, and we're going to delete the pieces that we don't need. And there we go. There is the basic outline of our part. We just need to add a few radii. So I'm going to start with that chamfer in the front of 625. It's already set. Just hit check there, and we're going to go to our radius. It looks like we need a 0.1 radius, an internal one, right here, and we need a 0.01 on the outside here, and hit check. Okay, so that looks good. That is our finished part. All right, now we're going to set up our stock. So I'm going to go into stock, and let's see how we did. Okay, so it didn't take the way that I wanted it to. And sometimes it's funky with that when you try and set that operation default. I did get it to work for my mill, but for some reason it doesn't want to take this. And that may be something to do with it being a home learning edition. I'm not quite sure why it didn't want to take that and save that. But we'll try again at the end of this. I'll try again at the end of this to save it, and we'll see if it comes on in the next tutorial. Well, it did take my margins, so that's kind of comforting. It took my margins. So our OD, we're going to say this is 1.5 OD, and the length, we are at 2.25, and of course we have our 2-inch margin. Okay, so everything there is good. Now, the thing to note here is that our axis is in the Z negative. So what we really want to do is we want to have this so that the back of our part is 0. So what I'm going to do is make this a positive 2.25 and hit check. Now the other thing I could do is, if I wanted to do this easy, what I did was look at the print and see how long the part is. I could also just select the back of the part. Or sorry, the front of the part. And that will give me my correct dimension here. Let me show you. Now notice, since I used a margin, the margins don't count for where it puts it. It's actually putting the stock where it's supposed to be. The margins are just added on to the actual stock. So it still has my extra 10 thousandths in the front. That's why the margins are a nicer way of doing things. So that's why this 2-inch margin is still at the back. This 1 inch or 10 thousandths is still out front. So I'm going to hit check, and let's open up my jewels. I'm just going to click from stock, and everything there looks good. Okay, so there we go. So I'm ready to add some tool paths to this part. So I'm going to go through this pretty quick because, again, we have done all this before. So I'm just going to go face, select a tool. Oh boy, where's my tool at? Okay. Here we are. So hit check. I think it just rearranged them since I changed my view around in the last one. Okay, so see a problem here. See, it's facing all this material away. The problem with that is I need to now select, because it's automatically going to go at 0. So my Z finish needs to be selected now. And now it's a Z.Z25. So if I regenerate that, now you can see it has changed it. So you got to be careful when you're machining out front here how you do that. Okay, so roughing. We're going to rough this to this, check, and the same thing, check. Okay, that works fine, because since I'm selecting geometry, I don't have to worry. It's telling it automatically where it's at. It's going to cut it where that geometry is at. Problem was with the face, it's just going to assume Z0 if you don't give it a position. Okay, so next we're going to do our finish, and I'm just going to do last, check, and we're going to get a tool. We're going to use this 35-degree diamond like always, check. Okay, that looks good. Next thing we're going to do is drill this. I'm actually going to spot drill it. So I'm going to select a 1/2 inch spot drill. I believe we're tapping this 1/4-20. We are. Okay, so we want to put a little bit extra chamfer on this. So it's going to be 270, which we know is going to be negative 0.135. If I didn't know that, I could always just take 0.27 divided by 2, and it will automatically do the math for me in there. I'm going to take off my drill tip comp because I know that's the exact depth that I want. I do not want to compensate for the tip. Hit check. Oh. Okay. Now, what happened there? All right, so what we didn't do when we did this, this is from where? This is from 0 because it's absolute. We want to make sure we put incremental, and we want to go drill point, and I'm going to specify that. So now it's incremental from there, and I'm going to go negative 0.135. Clearance is going to be incremental, and the retract needs to be incremental now, because again we're going from the drill point. And our tip compensation, of course, still needs to be off. And hit check. And now we get the result we want. Okay, so it's important to do that. Otherwise, you're just going to have things crashing. And the way that that works is if we tell it where the drill point is, then everything is incremental from that point. So from that very front, it's going to go negative 135. From that very front, it's going to pull out a positive 1/4 inch for our clearance, and it's going to come out a positive 0.1 for our retract. So it's important to use incremental when you're doing this. Either that, or if you choose absolute, you have to put the absolute correct number in there from 0, which would be back here. So it would be a positive number to the bottom of that hole, which is a more difficult way of doing it. So I always just do it incremental like this. If you have questions about that, feel free to email me, or actually better, just see me. It's something that really has to be explained in person, or it's a lot easier to explain in person than it is via email. Okay, so let's hit check. All right, so now we're ready to drill again. Let's drill our hole. And of course, I'm going to need to go to a different library for this. Where is it? Lathe drills. There we go. And arrange via view via details. All right, and we need a number 7, which I think I already passed. Number 7 drill. And I know that because that is our tap drill for 1/4 inch. Okay, and if you do not know what that is, just use a tap drill chart, or you can use the machinist handbook to find out. If you don't have a drill that adds exactly up to what you need when you look at the chart, just basically all you have to do is go to the closest one. So whatever the closest size is to what you get. Also, our formula for finding this is even an easier way of doing it rather than using a chart. It's just diameter minus pitch. So the pitch of a 1/4 is 0.05 because it's 1 divided by 20, which equals 0.05. So it is essentially just a 1/4 inch, 0.25, minus 0.05, which is 0.2. And you can see we end up with a 0.201, which is our closest drill to that. And that is off a 75% thread. Okay, so we've got our number 7 drill. We just need to create our drill point. Okay, it's automatically defaulted this number in for us. And now we just put the depth in from there. So we're just going to go a negative, it looks like about a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to say negative 0.55. I'm going a little extra just because it's a drill. I want a little room for that tap. The tap is actually supposed to go negative 0.55. So I'm making myself a little bit extra room there. I'm going to turn my drill comp on, or my tip comp on. And I can drill this all at once. I don't have to peck drill this. It's only a 1/2 inch. Okay. Next, I'm going to do my tap. So I'm going to drill and select library, and let's go to my taps. Let's see, it should have L taps. There it is. And we need a 1/4-20. There we are, 1/4-20 right-handed tap. You want to make sure you have a right-handed tap, not a left-handed. So I want inches per revolution, and I want RPM. I don't want constant surface speed for this. My spindle speed, I'm going to make it 500. And I know just off the top of my head that it happens to be 0.05 because we know basically it's the pitch. Inches per revolution is the pitch, and we did it earlier. 1 divided by 20 is 0.05. So that is going to be our proper feed rate. Okay, and I'm just going to change this to negative 0.5. Tip drill compensation, we are turning that off now because we're not using a drill, we're using a tap. And I'm going to hit check. And you can see there is our tapped hole. All right. That is all finished. Next thing we need to do is cut this off. Cut off boundary point is right there. And let's go to our tools. We gotta go back. I wish they had these all in one place. I wish they did this a little easier, but they don't. Lathe inch and view large icons. So I actually like to view the tool when I'm using turning tools, but when I'm using drills, I know what they look like, so it's a little bit easier. Okay, so I'll hit check, and there is our part with the chamfer on, everything. So that is how you make the part with the 0 at the back. It's just a matter of where your numbers are, and that's all. Oops, a little too much there. Yep, looks good. So that is a perfect part. Now, really quickly, I'm going to save this. Save as, browse. Oops. Save. Okay, now with that saved, what I do want to show you is translating these. So say I drew this part just because it was easier, but I still want the 0 to be in the front. All I need to do is just go to transform and go move to origin and select the point that I want to be the origin. And you can see there it moved everything back. Now my stock obviously is an issue here, so I had to go fix my stock. So I'm just going to select my stock, properties, and once again I'm going to make the 0 my front. And you can see there it fixed all that. Now I just need to change this, so I'm going to go from stock and hit check. It just reset that because I made those changes. And now I'm going to regenerate everything, and it should fix it. Okay, so now I have 0 at the front of my part. So pretty simple to fix. In the shop, we usually always use the front of our part as 0, but it's really kind of a preferential thing. It's what you like, so you can do it any way you want. In any case, that's all I have for you. And again, if you have questions, feel free to email me or come and visit me.